दिलों में प्यार की खुशबू तो होठों पर दुआ रखना दिलों में प्यार की खुशबू तो होठों पर दुआ रखना ईमान में वक्त से एक रिश्ता इश्को वफा रखना ईमान में वक्त से
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone, and welcome to Friday's Sermon for Kids. This week with me are Munis and Waleed. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, guys, and welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum assalam, Rabbi Sahib.
Now, everyone, this week, beloved Huzoor Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Aziz spoke about the blessings of financial sacrifice and the blessed scheme of Tehrik-e-Jadid.
सबसे पहली बात तो याद रखनी चाहिए कि हर काम को चलाने के लिए उसके अखराजात पूरे करने के लिए माल की ज़रूरत होती है। इस बात की वजाहत करते हुए एक मौके पर हज़रत मसीह मौला ने फरमाया कि हर नबी ने अपने मकासद की तकमील के लिए माल की तहरीक की और कुरान करीम में भी मुख्तलिफ ज़ावियों और पैराए में मोमनों को माल की कुर्बानी की तरफ तवज्जो दिलाई गई है।
Alright everyone, for this week we're going to speak about financial sacrifice, why it's so important, and some miraculous stories from around the world. But before we get into our discussion, guys, did you guys listen to this week's Friday sermon?
Alhamdulillah, saw it once. Same here. I listened to it from the beginning to the end.
That's great, guys. And what are the new points that you learned this week?
The new thing I learned from beloved Huzoor's Friday sermon was that if you spend money for Allah's sake, then Allah will reward you in this life and in the afterlife.
I learned from the Friday sermon of beloved Huzoor that Allah the Almighty once stated, "The wealth one spends in the way of Allah becomes a means of blessings in this life and the next."
Those are some really amazing points, guys. And now it's time to hear from all of you at home and all the amazing points you learned. And so for that, let's go to Kids Take.
And this week, what I learned from the Huzoor Salman, a woman from Australia was gone when the officers came to visit for Tehrik-e-Jadid. And when the woman returned, she rushed to the mosque to donate $1,000. But the officer said she should pay for next year, and she said, "I want to pay for this year. I promise my God."
In this week's Friday sermon, Huzoor spoke about Hazrat Abu Bakr, peace be upon him. Did you know that Hazrat Abu Bakr was one of the first people to accept Islam? Huzoor spoke about his piousness and his love and closeness to Allah.
Jazakallah everyone for sharing those wonderful points. We always look forward to hearing from you. And remember, if you don't share your videos with us, we won't have anything for this segment. So continue to send your videos in. We'll always be waiting for them. All right, guys, let's get into our discussion for today.
Rabbi Sahib, I learned so much about spending my money for Allah's sake this week. The sermon was so enlightening.
Yeah, especially when Huzoor Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Aziz spoke about why it's so important to spend in the way of God and our faith.
That's absolutely correct. It's really important. And Huzoor Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Aziz mentioned that all the work and the tasks that we do require money. And the promised Messiah ﷺ also mentioned that all the prophets throughout time have invited their followers to contribute their wealth for the sake of Allah the Almighty. And this is something we find clearly mentioned in the Holy Quran as well. And as a result, Allah the Almighty promises that when you spend for Him, He will reward you in this life and in the hereafter.
Wow, there's so many ways to gain the blessings of Allah the Almighty. Our prayers, our time, and even our wealth.
Rabbi Sahib, how does Allah reward us for spending wealth for Him?
Well, Munis, that's a great question, and Huzoor Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Aziz explained this through a beautiful verse of the Holy Quran in which Allah the Almighty states that the example of someone who spends his money for Allah the Almighty is like a grain of corn that grows 7 ears, and in each ear there are 100 grains. And Allah the Almighty can multiply it even more for whoever He wants. And so, if we do the math, guys, when we spend something for the sake of Allah the Almighty, Allah takes that as a seed and multiplies it by 700 and then gives it back to you. So Allah the Almighty never keeps the qarza you give Him, but He always multiplies it and gives it back.
700 grains. That's so much. It's almost unbelievable.
It really is, isn't it? But it's true.
But wait, Murabi Sahib, that word you said there, qarza, is that what we give to Allah the Almighty?
Yeah, I didn't understand that word at all.
Well, guys, if you guys are wondering about what that word means, what better time than to go to our expert Ashir for the word of the sermon.
Jazakallah Murabi Sahib. So guys, the word of the sermon is qarza. The word qarza is rooted from the Arabic language meaning loan. So when you give someone money to borrow, it means that you have given them a loan or loaned them some money. In the Holy Quran, this word has appeared many times in reference to giving Allah the Almighty a loan. The beauty of the word is that spending for the sake of Allah is not actually giving Allah the Almighty a loan. And Allah the Almighty never keeps a loan. In fact, He always multiplies it and gives it back. If you give Allah the Almighty a loan, you will always get more than what you gave. So that's that. Back to you, Murabi Sahib.
Jazakallah Ashir, very nicely done. And along with the meaning of the word, we learned a little bit about what the Holy Quran says as well.
Nice. So Murabi Sahib, Huzoor Yadullahu Ta'ala bin Nasrul Aziz mentioned some stories about Ahmadis from around the world. What are some of those?
Oh yeah, those stories about how Allah the Almighty blessed them for spending their money in the Tehrik-e-Jadid scheme.
You guys are absolutely right, and there are a lot of stories that Huzoor Ayadullah Ta'ala mentioned. But before we get to the Tehrik-e-Jadid stories, there's a story that Huzoor Ayadullah Ta'ala bin Aziz narrated about a saint from the past known as Rabia Basri. So the story goes that Rabia Basri once had only 2 rotis in her home, and she suddenly got 20 guests. So Rabia Basri did something strange. She told her maid to donate those 2 rotis that they had to the poor. Now the maid was very confused. She said that we need these rotis to feed our 20 guests. But anyway, she did what she was told. Now, a little while later, someone came to the house of Rabia Basri and gave them 18 rotis. And the maid was really happy. She's like, this is perfect. This is what we need to feed our guests. But Rabia Basri said that, no, I'm not going to accept these. And that really confused the maid. Anyways, later on, they heard a voice from outside the house saying that those 18 rotis were actually for someone else, and there are 20 rotis for Rabia Basri. And Rabia Basri says that she prayed that, oh Allah, I'm giving these 2 rotis to you, and now I want you to multiply those by 10 and give it back to me. And so this is how Allah the Almighty accepted her prayer and multiplied what she gave for Him and returned it to her.
Alhamdulillah, that's so amazing. She had so much faith in God.
These stories are just so inspiring. But what's even more amazing is that these miracles still happen today.
That's right, Waleed, and that's exactly what Huzoor Ayadullah Ta'ala bin Aziz said in his sermon, that these stories still happen today. So moving on to the Tehrik-e-Jadid stories, Huzoor mentioned the story of a young man who lives in Guinea-Conakry by the name of Muhammad Silla. Now, it came time to contribute for Tehrik-e-Jadid, and he gave 10,000 Guinea francs for Tehrik-e-Jadid. Now bear in mind that this is the only money that he had for his food, for his lunch and his dinner. But despite that, he gave it all for Tehrik-e-Jadid. A few days later, he called the local Murabbi and he told them that Allah the Almighty had accepted his sacrifice. So what happened was, he had been trying to get a job for a really, really long time, and he finally got that job. Now what's really amazing is that job gave him a lot of money, a lot more than what he had before. And Huzoor Ayadullah Ta'ala actually did the calculations and said that he was making 7,000 times more than what he donated for Tehrik-e-Jadid.
Wow, we were talking about 700, but this is 7,000.
This is indeed Allah's blessing, and He multiplies it for whoever He wants.
That's right, Munis. Now, before we get any deeper into the sermon of beloved Huzoor Ayadullah, I want to see how well you were listening to his words. And so for that, let's go to the question of the sermon. All right, everyone, time for the question of the sermon, where, as you know, you at home and our panelists have 10 seconds to get the right answer. So for this week, the question of the sermon is, this year marks the beginning of what year in the historical timeline of Tehrik-e-Jadid? Is it number 1, the 86th year, number 2, the 87th year, number 3, the 88th year, or number 4, the 89th year? Your time starts now. Alright guys, time's up. What are your answers?
I think it's number 4, 89th year.
I also think it's number 4, the 89th year.
Guys, your answers are absolutely correct. Good job.
Alhamdulillah.
So, Murabi Sahib, I really want to hear more stories about Ahmadis. It's getting really inspiring for me.
Yeah, it's so exciting to hear about these miracles from Allah.
Alright guys, so on to the next story. Huzoor Ayadullah Ta'ala bin Nasr Aziz narrated a story about a 57-year-old woman from the Gambia. And she donated 200 dalasis, which is the local currency there, for Tehrik-e-Jadid. And this is all she had, and she gave it all for God. Now, miraculously, a few days later, her son from Switzerland contacted her and said that he's sending 12,200 dalasis to her. Now, she told everyone about this. She was overjoyed that Allah the Almighty accepted her sacrifice and gave her this miracle. Now, the miracle of the story is that her son had not contacted her for over 6 months. And after she gave all that she had for Allah the Almighty, her son contacted her, and Allah the Almighty rewarded her for her sacrifice as well.
Wow, that was such an amazing story. It's stories like these that make my faith grow.
Can you tell us another story, Murabi Sahib?
Yes, so here's a short one. Huzoor Ayadullah Ta'ala bin Nasr Aziz talked about a young man in Tanzania who had just become an Ahmadi Muslim. When he heard that it was the last month to donate for Tehrik-e-Jadid, he went out into the fields looking for work, and he worked really hard all day. And whatever money that he earned, he gave that all for Tehrik-e-Jadid. And this is the inspiring spirit within Ahmadi Muslims, to give to Allah the Almighty. Now, after narrating these beautiful stories, Huzoor Ayadullah Ta'ala bin Nasr Aziz also officially announced the beginning of the 89th year of Tehrik-e-Jadid. And after officially announcing the new year, he also presented a list of standings of countries who were ranked the most in contributing toward Tehrik-e-Jadid.
Wow, I feel like I need to listen to the Friday sermon again to be even more inspired.
Yeah, I'm so motivated now to spend more for the sake of God.
Alhamdulillah guys, I'm really happy to hear that you guys are feeling inspired, but unfortunately, this brings us to the end of our show for today.
Aw, man. Well, everyone, don't forget to watch the full Friday sermon.
And make sure to get back to us.
Now let's go to our critical message.
Did you enjoy this week's Friday Sermon for Kids? Want to know how you can make it even better? Tell us what you learned from beloved Huzoor's Friday Sermon and send your videos and questions at FS4Kids@mta.tv no later than Sunday, and we'll try to include them in our next week's show.
Now, we can't include all the videos you'll send every time, but you can see them all on our Instagram and Twitter at MTA Canada. Remember, at Friday Sermon for Kids, you're not just the audience, you make the show. See you next week.
Okay everyone, it's time to review our little lesson for this week. Pay close attention to the new things we learned about financial sacrifice.
Beloved Huzoor Ayadullah Ta'ala bin Nasr Aziz told amazing stories about the blessings of financial sacrifices, including an inspiring story of Rabia Basri. She sacrificed all the food she had for Allah, even though she desperately needed it to feed her guests. As a result, Allah the Almighty multiplied her sacrifice by 10 and returned the food to her, which was exactly what she needed to feed her guests. This miracle is in light of the words of God in the Holy Quran, where He states that He will multiply the wealth for those who sacrifice it for Him.
Beloved Huzoor Ayyadahullah Ta'ala bin Aziz spoke about the importance of spending in the cause of Allah the Almighty and in service for our faith. The beauty of spending in the cause of Allah is that Allah the Almighty returns what you have spent for His sake, but before returning it to you, He multiplies it manyfold. Believers of all times have witnessed this and the help of Allah the Almighty as a result of spending for His sake. But remember, along with sacrificing our wealth, we must pray and perform other righteous deeds. Otherwise, our sacrifice is pointless.
Beloved Huzoor Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Aziz also narrated the stories of Ahmadis from around the world who witnessed the blessings of contributing toward the scheme of Tehrik-e-Jadid, including Ahmadis from the Gambia, Tanzania, Guinea-Conakry, Germany, and even Canada. Following this, beloved Huzoor Ayyadullah also officially announced the new year of Tehrik-e-Jadid and presented the standings of countries who contributed the most toward the Tehrik-e-Jadid scheme. Now these were but a few sips from the fountain of the Friday sermon of beloved Huzoor Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Aziz.
Make sure to watch the full khutbah.
So until next week,
Khuda Hafiz.
इश्को वफा रखना दिलों में प्यार की खुशबू तो होठों पर दुआ रखना इमाम वक्त से एक रिश्ता इश्को वफा रखना इमाम वक्त से